They said the ship could never sink, but in just 37 seconds, everything changed forever. And what sank the Titanic wasn't only an iceberg, not even close. The year was 1912. The Titanic was the largest, most luxurious passenger ship humanity had ever built. An engineering miracle, believed to be unsinkable. On her maiden voyage, she set sail across the Atlantic with thousands of people on board. Newspapers praised her. Passengers believed boarding the Titanic meant safety, status, and progress. No one imagined this would be a one-way journey. The White Star Line wanted to defeat its rivals, not with speed, but with luxury. "We may not be the fastest," they said, "but we are the most comfortable." Inside, the Titanic looked like a floating palace. Grand staircases, lavish salons, priceless decor. Yet some warned, this money should have gone into technology, not appearances. On April 10, 1912, the Titanic departed from England. Her destination, New York. Before departure, iceberg warnings were received. But in the Atlantic, such warnings were routine. No speed was reduced, no course was changed. As night fell, the temperature dropped sharply. There was no moon. The ocean was unnaturally calm. Ironically, these were the most dangerous conditions possible. Without waves, icebergs became nearly invisible. Close to midnight, the Titanic was sailing near the Grand Banks. Lookouts scanned the darkness ahead. Then suddenly, a dark shape appeared. It was hard to make out, but instinct screamed danger. The bell rang 3 times. A single word reached the bridge: iceberg. The helm was turned hard, but it was already too late. The Titanic was traveling at only 22 miles per hour, yet stopping a mass of that size was impossible. Just 37 seconds later, at 11:40 p.m., the Titanic struck the iceberg. But it didn't crash head-on. It scraped along it. And that detail changed everything. The iceberg didn't punch one massive hole. As the ship scraped past, the iron rivets holding the hull together were torn loose one by one. 5 watertight compartments began flooding simultaneously. Nearly 400 tons of water per minute poured in. The ship's designer, Thomas Andrews, inspected the damage. Then he delivered the verdict no one wanted to hear. This ship cannot survive. There was only one option left: abandon ship. Lifeboats were prepared. The order was given: women and children first. But many lifeboats were lowered half empty. Most passengers still didn't believe the situation was serious. After all, this ship wasn't supposed to sink. Meanwhile, distress signals were sent. Morse code. Flares fired into the night sky. Just 20 miles away, another ship watched, the Californian. They saw the flares, but they didn't understand what they meant. At the time, maritime rules were unclear. The captain couldn't determine whether this was an emergency or not, and no help came. As time passed, the bow of the Titanic disappeared beneath the water. The stern began to rise into the air. Now reality could no longer be denied. At 2:20 a.m., the Titanic vanished beneath the surface. For those who fell into the ocean, the true horror had just begun. The water temperature was about 28 degrees Fahrenheit, -2 degrees Celsius. In those conditions, a human being could survive no longer than 15 to 30 minutes. Cold takes control fast. Muscles stop responding. Hands lock up. Breathing becomes uncontrollable, and consciousness slowly fades. More than 1,500 people disappeared into the darkness, into silence, into freezing water. When dawn arrived, only wreckage remained, and survivors who would never forget that night. For decades, the Titanic disaster was explained with a single sentence: she hit an iceberg. But the truth was far more complex. The angle of impact, the rivets, ignored warnings, bad decisions, and human arrogance. The Titanic wasn't sunk by one mistake. It was sunk by a chain of them. And that chain closed on a silent night in the middle of the Atlantic. But the story doesn't end here, because when the wreck was finally found, even more questions emerged.